Dr. Craig, in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul gives a list of all the witnesses to Jesus' resurrection. Some are identified, such as Peter, the 12, James, the apostles, Paul himself included. My question is, who were the 500? Paul said that there were 500 eyewitnesses to the resurrection. Of course, some could be surmised or assumed from the Bible, but is there any other literature that gives us insight to who they might be? Has any other church father identified or confirmed someone who was part of the 500?
There's no reference to the 500 brethren that saw Christ anywhere else that I know of in early Christian writings, included in the New Testament. And so it's an astonishing claim when you think about it that there would be 500 Christians who, it says, at one time saw Jesus risen from the dead. This is quite an astonishing claim, and one wonders, well, why don't we have a story of this incredible event anywhere else in the New Testament? And yet, Paul says that some of these people are still alive, though some have died, which shows that Paul knew who these people were. This wasn't just sort of a meaningless cipher on a list. Paul was aware of these people. He knew that some had died in the interim, but that many were still around and could be questioned about this. C.H. Dodd, the great New Testament scholar of Cambridge University, said that Paul is saying, in effect, the witnesses are there to be questioned if you want to go talk to them. So this appearance must have occurred. Paul knew the people who had seen it. So how does one explain what it is and when it occurred? Well, if you think about it, an appearance to 500 people at one time would have to occur out of doors. There wouldn't be any sort of auditorium or inner building in which this plausibly could have occurred. And that suggests that it probably took place in Galilee. We know that in Galilee, Jesus spoke to crowds of people that numbered sometimes in the thousands on the Galilean hillsides. And the gospel narratives tend to focus on the appearances in Jerusalem. And this may be why this appearance is not related in the Gospels, because they tend to leave out the Galilean appearances and focus on the Jerusalem traditions. But it is very intriguing, Kevin, to notice that in Matthew chapter 28, he does narrate an appearance in Galilee on a mountaintop. And one of the singular things about this mountaintop appearance in Matthew is that it is the only post-resurrection appearance which is by appointment. It says that the disciples went to the mountain which Jesus had appointed them to go to. All of the other appearances were spontaneous, unexpected appearances. But this was a rendezvous where Jesus had apparently arranged a time and a place at which he would meet the disciples in Galilee. And it's not at all implausible that others who had known Jesus during his lifetime would gather with them on the mountaintop to see this appearance of Jesus to them. And it's very interesting that it says that when Jesus appeared and came to them, that some doubted. And the grammar there suggests that although the 12 disciples believed, others who were with them doubted that this really was Jesus, perhaps, or that this was a genuine resurrection appearance or something of that sort. They hadn't seen the previous appearances. They hadn't been, perhaps, in Jerusalem and seen the crucifixion, so some doubted. So that's suggestive that it could be that the mountaintop appearance related in Matthew 28 is the appearance to the 500 brethren that finds its way into this pre-Pauline tradition that is cited in 1 Corinthians 15. We have no way of knowing, but it's an interesting conjecture.
Paul appeals to the 500, and he appeals to other eyewitnesses. Was he pretty standard here by ancient standards? Was he in keeping with ancient standards on relating a certain amount of witnesses to establish something?
Right. The ancient historian's method would be to cite eyewitnesses. They didn't trust literary sources, so the historian would try to talk about the actual persons that he interviewed or that he himself was part of these events and experienced them. There's a high value placed on being able to cite the eyewitnesses. just as you have here in 1 Corinthians 15. So my doctoral mentor, Wolfhard Pallenberg, says that what Paul is trying to do here in 1 Corinthians 15 is give a convincing historical proof by the standards of that time.
Fascinating. 1 Corinthians 15, one of the longest chapters in the New Testament, and it is just, I call it a cheesecake chapter. It's got so much in it.
It's a wonderful treatise, a separate little treatise on the resurrection.
It's almost the New Testament in a nutshell. One more question about the 500. What kind of effect do you think that they had on the start of the church, this 500? Surely some of them were hanging around at Pentecost or maybe involved there?
Well, it makes you wonder, but it's just impossible to know.
Just conjecture?
Because the early church was focused in Jerusalem. This was where the center was in Jerusalem. So these folks, if they were in Galilee, would have had to come to Jerusalem and perhaps stay there. And that's not at all impossible, but we just don't know for sure.